The sun had barely risen over the rocky hills of Tenerife when I stepped onto the terrain that had consumed my every waking thought. I've worked kidnappings, standoffs, and drug raids in my 2-decade career as a Metropolitan Police detective. But this case, the disappearance of 19-year-old Jay Slater, felt different. It was more than a puzzle. It was a haunting, a tangle of unanswered questions and shadows cast by those who should be talking, but aren't. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Jay vanished without a trace after attending a music festival on the island. Last seen near the rugged Tenno Rural Park, he was in the company of 2 older men, one of whom, it later emerged, had ties to drug activity. As the official investigation faltered, Jay's family called in private help. That's when I got involved. Now, months later, with an inquest looming, I believe there is one key figure whose silence screams louder than any search siren we ever sounded, the so-called friend. The suspected drug dealer who spent Jay's final hours with him. And he must come forward. The disappearance that gripped a nation. From the moment Jay Slater was reported missing, the case ignited interest across Britain and beyond. A handsome, confident teenager from Lancashire, Jay had flown to Tenerife with friends for a brief summer escape. His last known location was a remote Airbnb an hour away from the tourist-filled clubs and bars, a place he never should have been. Local police were quick to dismiss foul play, suggesting Jay may have wandered off and succumbed to the treacherous heat and cliffs. But the evidence didn't fit that tidy theory. Jay was reportedly trying to make his way back to town, on foot, with a dying phone, and no water. CCTV showed he never made it. For anyone who has walked that terrain, the danger is immediate. But even if Jay made a poor decision, it doesn't explain why he was there to begin with. In the company of a man his parents had never heard of, with a reputation for supplying drugs. Who is the friend? The man in question, known only by his nickname Keegan, was one of the last people to see Jay alive. An expat with prior run-ins with UK authorities, he was in Tenerife for reasons that remain murky at best. Multiple reports from locals and tourists point toward his connection to the underground party scene, not just as a participant, but as someone who supplied what people wanted. It was at a rave that Jay met him. Accounts say Jay left with him and another unnamed male in the early morning hours. They traveled nearly 40 kilometers away from their base to that Airbnb in Masca, a perilous journey to a secluded location that raised alarm bells for me instantly. Why did Jay go there? Was he lured with promises? Was he under the influence? Was he even in control of that decision? And more importantly, why has Keegan refused to give a full, sworn statement at a public inquest? The inquest demands answers. In the weeks since the active search was called off, Jay's parents have fought for transparency. They pressed for a UK-based inquest, believing, rightly in my opinion, that the Spanish investigation was inadequate. Important CCTV wasn't followed up on. Phone data was never fully extracted. And interviews with the 2 men Jay last spent time with? Superficial at best. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've sat across hardened criminals, and I've learned to read silence like a map. Keegan's refusal to speak openly says more than he knows. There is a legal line between suspicion and evidence, but as an investigator, I live in the space between the motive, the tension, the inconsistencies. Why, for instance, did he check out of the Airbnb so suddenly after Jay left? Why has he offered differing accounts about the morning Jay disappeared? And why does he claim Jay just walked off, into the punishing heat, alone, with no follow-up? The drugs angle, a dangerous thread. Here's the hard truth. Jay wasn't perfect. Friends have admitted he dabbled with party drugs. But teenagers make mistakes. That doesn't justify a death, or worse, a cover-up. I've spoken with locals who heard whispers about that final night. One bartender said Jay seemed sketched out before he left the rave. Another tourist mentioned seeing him arguing with someone who matched Keegan's description. When you add in the context, a teen with little experience abroad, high on something, possibly feeling unsafe, the picture darkens. What if Jay saw something he wasn't meant to? What if he tried to leave and was threatened? What if an overdose occurred, and panic took over? These are not accusations. These are leads that Spanish authorities never chased, and that Keegan has never been forced to answer in front of a coroner. From experience, what a real inquiry would look like. In my days as a homicide detective, we'd start with a timeline. Pin down exact movements. Phone pings, social media messages, witness sightings. Then we'd identify persons of interest, anyone whose actions don't align with the victim's last known choices. Keegan would have been top of the list. We would have served a search warrant. Pulled every text. Interviewed his friends. Looked at his finances. Was he paid to bring someone out there? Did someone panic and ask him to disappear, Jay? You can't get away with vague answers in an inquest under UK law. That's why I, and Jay's family, want one here. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The emotional toll on the family. Jay's mother, Debbie, is a woman broken but burning with resolve. I've seen her cry, scream, and sit silently for hours staring at maps and photos. What she wants isn't revenge. It's clarity. Closure. She deserves to know whether her son's death was a tragic accident, or something more sinister. The inquest could compel Keegan to testify under oath. It could lead to extradition requests. It could be the first step toward justice. But time is slipping away. Memories fade. Witnesses scatter. And people like Keegan hope that silence will protect them. What the public needs to understand. This isn't just a case of a teen gone missing after partying too hard. This is about accountability in an era when travel, drugs, and digital footprints blur the lines of responsibility. If Jay was led into danger by someone older, more manipulative, and with a history of criminal behavior, that's not just bad luck. That's manslaughter, or worse. And if someone knows what happened and chooses to say nothing? That's complicity. My message to Keegan. If you're reading this, I know you've felt the net tighten. I know you've lied awake at night wondering if someone saw, if someone heard, if someone recorded something. This is your chance to speak. Not just for Jay, but for your own soul. Come forward. Give the inquest the truth. You may be afraid, but silence will not save you forever. Because we're not done searching. Not by a long shot. Final thoughts. Jay Slater was 19. He had a whole life ahead of him. One mistake, one night, and now his name is etched into the long, tragic list of those failed by international policing and collective indifference. But we can still change the ending. The inquest is coming. It must be real, thorough, and unflinching. And Keegan must take the stand. The time for hiding is over. Jay's family deserves answers. And the truth, no matter how dark, must finally come to light. Subscribe the channel to get such videos.